I am so happy to bring to the stage now, the virtual stage, two incredible leaders in the digital health ecosystem. Zina Manji, who's the Senior Director of Regulatory Affairs and the lead for innovation at Haleon, the recent consumer health spinoff from GSK. And again, another longtime colleague and friend, Joris van Dam, who's a digital therapeutics pioneer. He's been doing digital therapeutics before the name digital therapeutics came out. And he's the editor in digital health. He's an editor and a digital health entrepreneur and the editor of the book that someone just won, Digital Therapeutics. Welcome to you both, and handing the virtual mic over to you, Zina.
Thank you so much, Stan. What an exciting way to start a session with a book giveaway. I have my very own copy here, and I can say it's a very good resource to have. So totally endorse that. So thank you so much. This is part of our monthly session of Digital Health Focus. Today, our discussion is on the state of the art in digital therapeutics, and what better way to bring that forward than to discuss with Joris van Dam, the editor of this book, Digital Therapeutics, Strategic, Scientific, Developmental, and Regulatory Aspects. So Joris, I am so pleased you're able to join us today to talk about your experience and the publication of this book. Could you share a bit about yourself and the healthcare landscape and how the key considerations of this book came about? How did the structure and the content of the book come about with the rich diversity of authors and examples?
Happy to. And Zina, thanks for having me. Here's another trivia question for you. How many pounds between those two different LinkedIn pictures you just asked me? But it's on a separate topic. To your point, Zina, and again, thanks for the glowing introduction, Zina and Stan. I'm a computer scientist by training. Have been in pharma and medtech for about 20 years. And my first foray into what we would now call digital health was about 15 years ago. Paul Stoffels, who was head of R&D at Janssen at the time, said that sometimes I think we call it software application, can be as valuable for public health outcomes as a new drug. And obviously that was very fascinating and inspiring to me, because I knew a lot about software applications, nothing about developing drugs. So that's what started my passion around it. And we didn't know what to call it. We didn't know where and how and when, etc. Fast forward 10 years later, around 2016-ish, there was a tipping point or perfect storm where things really started to come together quickly. Not the least of which was Digital Therapeutics Alliance, and collaboration within that group was an inspiration for this book, and also a lot of the Digital Therapeutics Alliance members graciously contributed to the book. But one of the missions of Digital Therapeutics Alliance was and is driving this collective progress by sharing experiences. And that's what we also tried to do with the book. And that progress sort of came in waves. As I said, 15 years ago, we didn't know how to call it. Now we suddenly had a name, digital therapeutics. But what is a digital therapeutic? Is this app a digital therapeutic? Is a Fitbit a digital therapeutic? And how do you call things? And then how did they work? Can they really move the needle on clinical outcomes in patients? And if you want to demonstrate that, how do you run a trial? And then if you have run the trial, how do you get it approved by regulators? Oh, now it's approved by regulators, but how do I get it reimbursed? And that progress came in waves. And I think we're now to the last wave, which is it works. You've proven that it works. It's approved. You can get it reimbursed. But now we have to work on how do we get it integrated into the daily lives of users. I'm trying to avoid the word patients, and the daily practice of healthcare providers. So if you're starting today, you can ride those waves of progress that have been made in the past, and you don't have to start from scratch. So that's what inspired the book. Let's sort of the rising tide that lifts all boats. Let's not start with a blank sheet of paper, but people who are getting into digital therapeutics today can again ride the wave of the collective experience that all the authors graciously contributed in this book.
Yeah, that's amazing, Joris. I think definitely a lot of shared learnings is such a tremendous value for healthcare and developers, and bringing that together in this diverse way is really important. And I noticed that there were several use cases that were in the book as well. And as you mentioned, the waves and describing the waves, I thought it was quite interesting, the examples that came through as well. And as part of, I think, the value of the book you're talking about is really, let people go through the waves, but then focus on the latter part, focus the innovation, the creativity on, okay, we've got the evidence. How do we bring forward that evidence, the value, and the reimbursement? What's the right model? What's the right business model? How are we ensuring that the users are interfacing and engaging, and you kind of get the outcome value of the digital therapeutic? So could you talk a little bit about the examples and your thoughts on those?
Oh yeah, and great question, because a lot of, as I just mentioned, the first wave was what is digital therapeutic and what isn't, right? We had a lot of discussion about that within Digital Therapeutics Alliance and beyond and whatever. And we found that digital therapeutic is not one thing, it's a common approach, but there are different approaches within digital therapeutics that you can take. And we tried to cover the spectrum in the book with those use cases. So for example, in the book, you will find a use case around digital therapeutics that you can self-prescribe. Sleep, Big Health kindly contributed the use case on Sleepio. And if you're covered by, I believe it's CVS in the US, and you have troubles with quality of sleep, you can self-prescribe and get it reimbursed by CVS. You don't need to go see a doctor. You don't need to have a diagnosis. And that is one of the main benefits, because you're avoiding access barriers, you're avoiding stigma. Peter Hames, their CEO at the time, did a brilliant interview with one of their users who said, what do you think is the biggest benefit? Who asked, what do you think is the biggest benefit of our approach? And he said, I don't have to go see a doctor. And this was a gentleman who had a job, a family. He ran the community barbecues. It's not cool to go out and say, I can't sleep. You don't even disclose even often to your family, right? So the whole access barrier, stigma, it's a huge opportunity. If you have access to the App Store, you can improve your sleep quality, right? So that's one. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there are prescription digital therapeutics, some examples in the book as well, where you do need the diagnosis, you do need a prescription. And the digital therapeutic in that case is actually the extension of the treatment that you're getting from your healthcare provider. So you have been diagnosed with diabetes, or your child's been diagnosed with ADHD, but before we put you on a drug, or in parallel that we put you on a drug, let's also give you this digital therapeutic, so it becomes an extension of the treatment outside of this office. And last category of examples you'll find in there are digital therapeutics that are really companion to particular pharmacotherapies, right? Volantis contributed a really insightful story about their digital therapeutics that are companions to, for example, oncology drugs. Now, the common theme across all these digital therapeutics is going from treating disease to treating patients. So I don't want to see another clinical trial ever that demonstrate that nutrition is better than exercise, is better than metformin, is better than insulin for the treatment of diabetes. Because if you're a diabetic, you don't care. What you care about if you're a diabetic is strapping that I'm a diabetic label off your forehead, so you can go back to being that rock star, community leader, a mom, an aunt, and whatever. You want to go back to the rest of your life so that you can forget about being diseased, right? And some people, nutrition will be their thing. Some people, a drug will be their thing. Other people, exercise will be their thing. You don't know, but we have to offer those options through digital therapeutics, so that every person can pick and choose the multiple interventions or treatments that helps them go back to the rest of their lives.
I think that really speaks to the advantage that digital health brings forward, right? Is this multimodal, different modalities of looking at healthcare. And as you say, it's really treating the whole person, really looking at the humanity of experiencing disease on a daily basis, experience treatment and their condition on a daily basis. It may not be a one size fits all, but you have these different modalities to choose from. And that's really kind of bringing forward an opportunity of that through digital health and looking at that whole person, as you mentioned. So we've seen that this is enabled this connectivity, the sharing of data, this real-time data sharing as well in this daily experiences. And so you described the opportunity for patients and people to be engaged with their own healthcare as well, and how these modalities have evolved. So what are your thoughts on the validation of the value of digital therapeutics? You mentioned earlier the evidence is there. And so do you think it's advancing? Do you think digital therapeutics are advancing healthcare and clinical understanding of conditions and treatment?
Oh, absolutely. And excellent, great question. Digital therapeutic is not the end all be all. It's not going to replace, but it's a key essential, an essential ingredient that was missing. The ultimate goal, where it all comes together. I just mentioned that going back to, I can peel my label, I'm a diabetic, off my forehead. I can go back to being a rockstar community leader and not being an insomniac. I'm not defined as breast cancer survivor anymore. I'm mom, I'm aunt, I'm the rock star person at my work, and so on and so forth, right? That's what patients want. But that's also what your employer wants, because then you're more productive and more happy at your workplace. That's what healthcare provider wants, because you have fewer claims, because you have fewer complications, exacerbations, and so on and so forth. That's what your doctor wants, because your doctor wants to, quote unquote, practice at the top of his or her license. So they want you to be that happy person who focuses on the rest of their life so they can treat the really complicated cases. So that is the ultimate goal that we all have. And let's call that a plateau of productivity, plateau of happiness, or whatever. So what everyone wants to know is, when are you falling off the plateau? It starts with your initial diagnosis, right? And then you're going to be fixed up. So now you're good. Your blood pressure is under control. Your infectious disease status is undetectable levels. You're in remission from cancer. You're back on that plateau where you're back to the rest of your life. Everybody wants to know one thing: when are you falling off? Now, we have all those technologies, those trackers and those digital endpoints, and they're amazing. The adoption is going to stop at health and wellness. I call them happy trackers, respectfully, right? So what digital therapeutics add is actually benefit to the patient. So if you combine digital therapeutics with the tracking, it actually becomes that extension of the, and you don't have to worry about, I wonder how Zina's doing. I wonder how yours is doing. I wonder how, because they're using the digital therapeutics every day. And as soon as I fall off that plateau of happiness, my doctor will know. And then falling off can have any sort of reason. It can have a biological reason, the disease progressed. It can have a nutrition reason. I moved to another country and I'm not eating as well anymore. It could have an anxiety reason because a global pandemic just hit and I don't know where to start or end anymore. So I believe the true power of digital therapeutics is integrating it with the overall, again, care for the entire person. And that's what's also going to drive the value of the digital endpoints and tracking and devices that we've had for a long time.
Yeah, I think everything you say is really inspiring, and we're really at that inflection point of understanding how we can really improve healthcare status of individuals on a massive way, in a more understanding more the underlying aspects of conditions and how the person is actually experiencing their life. So what better use case than COVID and kind of going through this humanity experience? So can you describe some of the things we talked about in terms of the broader aspects of what are those key points that you mentioned that also come through as a result of the book on, you know, these are the 4 main points, and if you track them.
Exactly. That's a great question, and I invite everyone to read the book through those lenses, because when you look at the book that way, you will see that it's always about 4 things. Whether it's diabetes, whether it's ADHD, whether it's oncology, it's always about 4 things. It's about mental wellness, it's about nutrition, it's about exercise, and it's about doing what your doctor says. Take your pill on time, go back for your next screening, and so on and so forth. When you do all those 4 things, you will continue to be on that plateau of happiness. You will continue to not have to focus on your disease and get back to the rest of your life. And digital therapeutics are well-proven interventions that can help with your mental wellness, that can help with your adherence, that can help with your nutrition, that can help with your exercise. Again, where we've now reduced access barriers, because you can get to them on your phone or on your laptop or wherever, and where they're personalized, because the digital therapeutics and digital endpoints are sending feedback. So read it through those lenses and you will see that digital therapeutics are not that hard, because it's always about that 4 things. But that's the last point. Mental health and wellness for a breast cancer patient, for a diabetic, for someone with psoriasis are not always the same thing. So where we need the community to focus, where we need the creativity, is again fitting a digital therapeutic in the daily lives of those patients, understanding what the patient's needs are, understanding when they need mental wellness, when they need nutrition, etc. That's where we need the creativity to go. Forget about, no, I was going to say forget about FDA. I don't mean that, because FDA are amazing partners, but you don't have to fret that, because the book will tell you what to do. You don't have to worry about reimbursement. The book will tell you what to do. We need the community to really focus their creative energy on creating solutions that fit in the daily lives of the people we all are all trying to serve collectively.
Yeah, wonderful, Joris, and I think that really shows that the uniqueness of this book. It's not just, you know, academic writings. It's really about how do you bring these solutions to life in a way that's meaningful, in a way that's integrated, and how you learn from others. The collective sharing, as you talked about, was one of the goals of the book, but then rounding it back up into that whole person and those key points which impact everyone's health. And if you measure those, you're more likely to really be in a successful state of keeping in that happiness condition, that good condition
Exactly.
that you talked about. So I think on a regulatory standpoint, which is where I come from, one of the things I always try to bring forward is that innovation shapes regulations, and I think you brought that forward beautifully in your last comments. It's not about not worrying about the regulations, but it's about how do we collaborate within the regulatory framework? How do we bring industry together and standards together to prove the points to regulators that these are ways that are safe and quality ways to manage data and improving the digital therapeutic indication. So thank you so much, Joris. It was such a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me. It's really been a pleasure. Appreciate it.